The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. My name is Deepak Biscuitwala, and I am the host today for this webinar. With me, I have co-host Kiran Mann, Marilyn Mondo, Sadita, and Brooks Carter. So today's webinar is about how mature is your quality culture. Before I introduce our speaker today, I would like to talk about the housekeeping. So on the webinar, on the right side panel, you will see a lot of different options on GoToWebinar. So during the presentation or during this session, if you have any question, you can post your question under the question section on the right hand panel. And our webinar will be probably up to 45 minutes. Last 15 minutes, we will have question and answer. Other thing is, if you have any issue, any problem, you can post under the chat section and we will address that as necessary to address at that time. Also, on the handout section, there is a handout. If you don't mind, it would be better to just download and print out or whatever, but it might be helpful during this webinar. So handouts is about Crosby maturity matrix blank PDF. Um, Again, to get the continuous education credit, you have to be at least on the webinar for 35 minutes. And we will post this webinar recording and the presentation on our human development and leadership website. So let me introduce our today's speaker. Our speaker, when growing up in the Northwest Arkansas and listening to her Ozark-based sailor family tale stories, gave our speaker Charlie Barton an interest in stories and storytelling. Joining the US Navy also gave her an appreciation of system thinking and continuous improvement. Over the years, she came to see how effective business practices reduce waste, encourage innovation, and supported communities. Charlie is a business management consultant who partners with small businesses to increase their profitability. In July 2017, the Human Leadership Division of the ASQ published the premier Appreciation for Systems, which Charlie co-authored. Charlie is an ASQ certified auditor and a 2017 examiner for the Arkansas Governor's Quality Award. In 2017, she received the Leadership Excellence Award from the College of Management and Technology, Walden University for Distinguished Leadership Scholarship and Mentorship. Charlie holds a PhD in Leadership and Organization Change from Walden University. So, would like to welcome our speaker, Charlie Barton. Charlie, please.
Thank you, Deepak. I'd like to introduce you to our community, the Human Development and Leadership Division. So are you a member? Did you know that ASQ communities are a place where you can meet and interact with other quality professionals in your industry? You can find similar interests or even regions of the world. Our communities are free and open to both ASQ members and non-members. We are on Twitter, so look for ASQ_HDL, and we have a LinkedIn company page. Look for ASQ Human Development and Leadership Division. Did you know you could visit our website to explore our growing library of primers? Look for us at ASQHANDL.org. Currently, we have 21 primers on topics ranging from employee motivation to leading through change. Everyone has the capacity to become a leader. Join us and unleash your potential. Most of us remember being confined to our chairs for lectures that last an hour, uncomfortable, and ultimately self-defeating if you want to understand and remember the material. Your mind begins to wander around that 20-minute mark. By that time, we will have covered some background, talked about poll results, and been introduced to the tools. So, around that 20-minute mark, I'm going to ask you to stand up and stretch at your desk. Staring at that computer monitor strains your eyes. If you are joining us by phone only and not wearing a headset, here's going to be a chance to rest your arms and unkink your neck. Furthermore, various studies have suggested that taking a brief break improves energy and helps you remember material. And this is one time that 60 seconds will probably feel like forever. So let's get started. Many researchers have identified the importance of the link between organizational culture and a successful quality management system. Organizational culture must be matched to business excellence practices if an organization wants to achieve total quality management, according to Baldrige and Reich, 2014. This point is supported by Hafar et al., 2013, who argued that organizations with a strong hierarchical culture or a market, that is, results-driven culture, are less likely to value total quality management principles because organizations with these cultures do not encourage employee creativity or innovation. That is, employees do not have a voice in product design or process management. Employees have the responsibility without the authority to make changes. The stories that people tell themselves and others about whether or not their organization can benefit from the Crosby Quality Management Maturity Model and the Baldrige Excellence Framework will determine whether or not these tools are actually used in an organization. Stories and storytelling are an inseparable part of culture. Thus, stories and storytelling affects the quality management choices of individuals within the organization and ultimately the culture of the organization. So, for our first poll.
Okay, this is Marilyn. I'm going to launch the poll now. Everyone should be able to see the poll and should start responding to it. We've got people starting to respond, about 10% so far. And we're up to about 40%, 50%. People are voting, Charlie.
Excellent. I am excited to learn who is responsible for quality in their organizations.
That's right. We've got 71% in hold. Oh, here come a few more. Okay, 75% in holding. I'm going to close the poll. And now I'm going to share it so everyone should be able to see. We have 62% say everyone in the company is responsible, 26% say the quality department, and 12% say the leaders.
And I'm sorry, just the quality department was how many percent?
26%, the leaders 12%, and everyone in the company 62%.
Wonderful, wonderful. For those folks that said that everyone in the company is responsible for quality, they're right, because companies with a mature quality management system, a mature culture of quality, they are all responsible. Everyone from the front line to the C-suite. The quality department, I am suspecting that a lot of those people are in manufacturing, It seems that the quality department is often the scapegoat for letting product out because it's the role of the inspectors to catch that. And the 12% of leaders and managers I find very interesting. It tells me that there is not a uniform understanding of quality throughout the organization. And that's something we're going to be looking at here. I'm pretty sure that these definitions are familiar to you. The definitions that we assign to words affects how we understand what we hear and what we intend when we use the word. If we look at the general, we all pretty much agree with those. They're common definitions found in engineering, ASQ quality definitions. But looking at organization level, an executive may often say that quality is good if we're not spending too much money. The general manager is shipping product, and the frontline worker says, those guys didn't come back and talk to me. So, is it any wonder that misunderstandings occur when folks are using different definitions for the same word? Over 50% of quality initiatives fail, according to Mazzadegrad in 2014. And communication failures, according to Mahi 2013, are a major contributor to that failure. Yes, it may seem like common sense, but getting everyone to use the same meaning is critical in moving toward a quality of culture. And for that 62% of folks on the call who see that, congratulations. You guys are on the right road. Here's a little stair-step spectrum to show how an organization could move up and down a staircase of quality culture. According to Mahi 2013, a quality culture is a system of shared values, beliefs, and norms that focuses on delighting customers and continuously improving the quality of products and services. It requires effort, and organizations historically struggle to move up the quality culture spectrum. In some cases, organizations are content with gains in one or two business areas. For example, manufacturing and engineering. However, these organizations are missing a crucial competitive edge. Simply put, organizations with a mature quality culture outperform and outlast organizations without a quality culture or organizations with a poor quality culture. Organizations with a mature quality culture are the backbone of their communities. Employee turnover is low, customer satisfaction is high, and the organization is profitable. As you can see, when people begin to share the same values, beliefs, and norms, the organization moves from not having a QMS to world class. All right, we're going to have our next poll. In the last poll,
go ahead.
In the last poll, we looked at who is responsible for quality in the organization. In this one, we want to know whether your managers and leaders believe that having a certification or system or following best practices guarantees that mature quality culture. Marilyn?
And we had a question on the last poll. Were we supposed to answer reality or what the proper answer should be?
I would prefer reality. I am a pragmatist. We all know what the academics say.
I shall launch. Okay, so here's the first option. We are ISO certified, so we have a mature quality culture. We use ISO guidelines, so we have a mature quality culture. Or we have a QMS. And so people are voting, Charlie. We've got about 20% so far.
I'm excited with the polls.
It's good to hear from people. Definitely 50%. And still climbing. I can't wait to see what the consensus is. What do you think it'll be?
Hey, you know, no scientist ever prejudices her results.
Okay, we're holding steady at about 66%, so I'm going to close and share. So what we have is we are ISO certified, so we have a mature quality culture is 23%. The second option, we use ISO guidelines, 6%. We have a QMS, 71%.
Wow, that last one really frightens me because there's such a range in quality management systems.
There's also a comment that came up that says, I think the option of just because we have ISO certified, it doesn't mean we have a good quality culture.
And I will agree with you, with the person that said that. As we know, as quality professionals and practitioners, often an organization will get an ISO certification so that it can compete in certain markets. The new 2018 ISO 9001 looks at a more integrated management role throughout its organization. So we may see that changes. It would be interesting to run this poll again in a year or two, Marilyn, and see what we got.
One more comment that came up was, yes, newly certified companies may not be mature.
Yes, yes, I agree. So we have 75% who have, according to their managers and leaders, say that their organization has a mature quality culture. And this, remember, is according to those managers and leaders. So we know that misalignment between individuals and levels in the organization on the meaning of quality and quality management practices is a major cause of a poor quality culture. It's really easy to point fingers, so how do you go about fixing the right problem? Sisyphus was the king of an area now known as Corinth. He had a reputation for being crafty and deceitful. According to Greek mythology, as a punishment for his crimes against the Greek gods, Zeus condemned Sisyphus to roll a huge boulder uphill for eternity. When the boulder neared the top of the hill, it would roll back over Sisyphus and squash him and come to rest at the bottom of the hill. Today, we call tasks that are both laborious and futile Sisyphean. And sometimes in our organizations, implementing consistent quality management practices, building that culture, seems Sisyphean. We have many tools to identify the root causes of problems. One of the challenges is getting everyone to agree on which problems are important to tackle, because how we see something as a problem or not is often related to that organizational culture. However, no matter what tool that we use, people, that is, yes, people are the key. And it is people's choices that are the building blocks of organizational culture. And those choices begin with feelings. So what if you had a pair of tools that looked at first people's perceptions, those feelings about the organization's state of quality, and second, at the organization's current or real state? Despite being nearly 40 years old, Crosby's Quality Management Maturity Grid remains an effective tool for looking at how people perceive their organization's quality management systems. It offers a consistent method of checking people's perceptions, something that can change when there are leadership or other changes. You'll notice that the Baldrige Excellence Framework is updated every 2 years. And while it is rare to have a major change to the framework, items may be moved to different categories. The Baldrige Excellence Framework offers a method of driving quantifiable, continuous improvement in your organization. But hey, folks, don't take my word for the value of the tool, though. The Baldrige Excellence Framework is used by all state-level quality award programs. In fact, if an organization wants to apply for the Baldrige Award, it needs to have received the highest state-level quality award, unless the organization happens to be in a state without a program. There's something really comforting when we can quantify a phenomenon. We say that there's a 10% defect rate, or warranty costs fell within guidance. Numbers often do not tell the entire story. Qualitative measures are subjective. That is, those measures reflect the beliefs, knowledge, and experiences of the observer. The measures are squishy, but people are squishy too. We often forget that the scientific method uses both induction, which is the observation of a phenomenon, and deduction, the testing of hypotheses developed from the observations. Pairing Crosby's grid and the Baldrige framework represents both sides of the scientific method model. So you may hear me refer to the grid as the quality management grid or Crosby's maturity grid, simply because Crosby's quality management maturity grid is such a mouthful. Now, Crosby's grid doesn't ask for proof. It's a series of statements that the rater agrees or disagrees with. On the other hand, the Baldrige Excellence Framework guides you through a series of questions that ultimately examines every system in your organization. And because the framework is built on a ranked question system, leaders and managers are able to tailor the depth of their analysis to their current state. And what I think is really, really cool about Baldrige Excellence Framework is that the sub-level questions can guide you in redesigning your systems and processes for effectiveness. So first, we're going to talk about Crosby's Quality Management Maturity Grid. Now, this is available in the handout. Those of you who are familiar with Crosby's work will know that it was found in his 1979 book, Printed Quality is Free. The 5x6 matrix looks at 6 measurement categories that ask about management perspective, how quality is viewed by the company, and how problems are handled. And the 5 stages of maturity provide a nuanced look at the category description based on whether there is effectively no quality management system or if the organization is the best of the best. The purpose is to understand where a company, division, or other unit lies on a spectrum based on your gut feelings. Now, Crosby recommends that 3 people, the quality manager of the operation, the general manager, and a staff member not assigned, fill out the grid separately. Points are assigned, and then points are equal to the stage of the observation. So an item under stage 1 would have 1 point, while an item under stage 5 certainty would have 5 points. By using a comparison between the 3 individual raters, you'll get an insight into the organization's quality culture. And later on, I'm going to show you how to use the form to select which areas of the Baldrige Excellence Framework to tackle first. As you can see, all types of organizations benefit from the Baldrige Excellence Framework. You have government, manufacturing, small business, nonprofits, education, and healthcare. in my opinion, the framework is an effective business systems model for organizations of all sizes, from solopreneurs, which are one-person businesses that may or may not work with other people to provide goods and services, to huge global organizations with hundreds of thousands of employees. Solopreneurs, by definition, do not have a workforce. However, thinking through the questions on things like workforce can make expansions easier as the solopreneur adds staff. And remember that the customer segment is vital to all organizations, no matter whether you are a one-person firm or a global retailer. On the left is the Baldrige Excellence Builder, and on the right is the Baldrige Excellence Framework. Now, the Builder is available as a free PDF download from the Baldrige Performance Excellence website. I've put the URL on this page. It is also on the references and resource pages. Now, if you are totally unfamiliar with Baldrige criteria, this free version is a great place to start. The Builder contains a condensed version of the material found in the Excellence Framework. Now, if you're able to answer these multiple questions, you're going to have a more mature quality culture. If you're unable to answer these basic questions, then you have a very immature quality culture. Now, when you go visit the Baldrige site, there's a ton of free resources. So take your time, wander through it, it's great. So let's look at what the questions look like comparing the Builder and the Framework. The capitalized words, how, process, key, are defined in a glossary. As you can see, there are more sub-questions in the framework, which allows you to be very specific in your investigation. The framework also contains notes about the different question sections, and they contain examples of the kinds of processes you might have in your organization. The Excellence Builder contains a rudimentary assessment matrix broken into reactive, early, mature, and role model values. The framework contains points for each section and a comprehensive set of scoring guidelines. All right, I promised our stretch break, so let's take a minute. If you've joined us online, move your eyes away from your monitor, stand up, stretch. And if you're coming to us on a telephone, here's a chance to take your headset off, put your phone down, because we're going to get to work in the next section. If you have questions, please share them in the chat. Okay, we're going to start. We're going to look in on a fictional company, Acme Manufacturing. Acme makes widgets, one of quality management's favorite manufactured products. Bob, who's the president of Acme Manufacturing, has been looking over the financials for the last year. He recently read a 2017 Forbes Insight report where Forbes partnered with the ASQ to examine the links between quality efforts and corporate performance, as well as the evolving business value of quality. The report stated that organizations with an established performance excellence programs saw more significant direct results as a benefit of their efforts as opposed to less developed counterparts which did not see the same amount of customer retention or profitability. In fact, here is the infographic that caught Bob's attention. The infographic summarizes the study findings. Forbes and ASQ conducted a survey and a qualitative interviews with 1,869 senior executives and quality professionals. There's also a link to the study in the references and resources slide. Now, Bob is a businessman. He was really impressed by the values for improved customer satisfaction and retention, and 29% increased profitability and revenue growth. Because, you know, his last year financials had shown that warranty returns and rework had hit Acme Manufacturing's bottom line pretty hard. He decided to take action. On some of the 5 ways that he could improve the quality culture in his company. Bob's a practical man. He knows you have to start somewhere. So he's going to start with item 1, incorporate quality into business cases. He's interested in mapping a connection between the success of his quality initiatives and whether or not his organization is meeting its goals. So he's also going to look at item 3, measure everything. As we all know, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So with the prospect of improving customer satisfaction, profitability, and growing revenue, he calls Sue Thompson into his office. Now, this is the cast of Acme Manufacturing. As you can see, Bob is at the top. Sue Thompson is his operations vice president. He's asked Sue to oversee an assessment of the quality management practices in Trent Clark's plant. Now, depending on what Sue discovers, that assessment is going to be done on other plants in the company. So Sue calls Trent and says, hey, she's coming for a visit because Bob would like to know answers to these questions. Sue asked Trent to recommend someone to put together a quality culture assessment program for Bob. So Bob recommends Lisa Scott, who's one of his engineers. Lisa thinks about it. So she recommends using the Crosby Quality Management Maturity Grid and the Baldrige Excellence Framework. Now, a PDF copy of the entire framework can be downloaded from the site for 12 United States dollars, which makes it a cost-effective resource for everyone to use. So Sue gets to the site, she talks to Lisa and Paul and Trent, and they decide that Lisa, Sue, and Paul are going to fill out a copy of the grid. Now, Lisa shows Paul and Sue how to fill out the grid, and they all agree to meet a week later and compare their assessments. Now, you may remember that I said Crosby recommended that the quality manager of the operation, the general manager of the operation, and a staff member not assigned to that location fill out the grid separately. In reality, you may not be able to follow Crosby's advice. A good rule of thumb to use is a senior manager or executive, a middle manager, and someone on the front line. That's going to give you a look at 3 different areas of importance about the same system. So, Sue went, observed, filled out her report, and as you can see, she thought that Trent's line recognizes that quality management may be of value, but she's not willing to provide money to make it happen. Remember I said that there were point values? Well, this item has a point value of 2. And as you look through it, you see how Sue feels about all of this, because she knows they've recently hired a new quality manager. But she's aware of the firefighting, and she's not really sure of the costs to quality, so she marks them under uncertainty. I suspect that all of us have worked at places where there are posters everywhere. Crosby's favorite was 0 defects. Quality is number one is a slogan frequently plastered across workplace walls. When you add up all of these values, you get a total of 9. So let's look at what Lisa thought. Now, Lisa believes that everything in her perception is under awakening. She knows that there are teams set up to attack major problems. She's part of 3 of them. She knows about the new manager. She thinks that there's a cost of quality reported as a percentage because of the reports that come across her desk. She's guessing that the actual is probably higher than the reported because, you know, she's an engineer and stats and costs are her thing. But she wonders, you know, do we always have to have a problem with quality? 2 points, 6 items, 12 points total. The man on the front line. He agrees with Sue that, and Lisa, that quality has value, but there's not a lot of money for it. He doesn't see the new leader as being strong because he's looking at quality in manufacturing or engineering, and that goes back to the 26% of folks where the quality department is responsible for quality. He's a firefighter. Problems were fought as they occurred. He makes his best guess on cost. The posters are there. And honestly, he doesn't know why they have a problem with quality. So he's got, I believe, 8 points. So putting all of this together, what do you get? Sue Thompson, 9 points. Lisa Scott, 12 points. Paul O'Brien, 8 points. Now, the Crosby Quality Management Maturity Grid assessment has a scale ranging from 6, where everything in stage 1 has been checked, to 30, where everything in stage 5 has been checked. Now, the good news is all of them are clustered close together, and they agree that the organization is somewhere between uncertainty and awakening. You may find in your organizations that people are all over the place. Keep working together and find out why. When you put the assessments together by category, the possible point values range from 3 through 6 for each category, and those were calculated by the point value of any checked category times, adding them all up. So Sue, Lisa, and Paul all checked the box under awakening for management, understanding, and attitude. So 3 people times 2 points is equal to 6 points. The largest opportunities for improvement lie within problem handling and cost of quality. An interesting cost of quality as a percent of sales is something that Bob is very interested in. Analyzing and improving processes and systems will have a positive impact. That is, move the organization from a firefighting mindset toward a continuous improvement mindset. So we see how Crosby's grid can give you a sense of how people feel about the state of quality in the organization. So where does the Baldrige Excellence Framework come in? Remember that it's for any kind of organization, but if you look within here, these are the categories: leadership, strategy, customers, workforce, operations, measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. Results are where you would report what you found out if you were doing an assessment. So after discussing the results of the maturity grid, Lisa realizes that she had not looked just at Paul's line, but had looked at manufacturing system as a whole. Now, Sue was privy to financials, so she was better placed to identify the gap between the actual and reported cost. Paul fights fires. He knows he should be more proactive, but the Band-Aids work, the product has to ship, or no one gets paid. So after looking at all the 6 categories, they agreed that operations is the place to start finding answers. However, there had been a spirited debate on whether they wanted to start with measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. We're going to use the questions in the framework because there are more of them. So Sue authorizes Lisa and Paul to use the questions in category 6 to assess Acme manufacturing processes. So they're going to start with the very basic question of how do you design, manage, and improve your key products and work processes? Remember that warranty costs were very high and customer satisfaction wasn't where Bob would like to see it. So looking at product and process design, it asks you how. A how question asks you what are the steps that you use. When you look at the Baldrige framework, you will find out that while you may produce many things, there are only a few key product or processes that drive your organization as a whole. One way to look at it is Pareto's 80-20 rule. You get most of your work done by a very small portion of your overall organization. Now, key work processes. What are the key requirements? You know, does something have to meet a certain quality from the supplier? What happens if there's rework? All of these are the kinds of questions that you're going to be asking. So along the way, Lisa and Paul are going to go through the questions, and I suspect they're going to make some changes immediately. Before Sue left, she notified Trent of the project, and she requested that he balance Lisa and Paul's workloads so they can complete this project for Bob. Without executive sponsorship, we can't move quality initiatives forward. Executive and senior management support is critical to any quality management initiative. And in this case, we're lucky because there is support from Bob. Now, depending on Bob's appetite for change and the culture of Acme manufacturing, the organization may find itself on the way to joining the ranks of companies that outperform their peers and competitors through a mature business excellence practices. Tonight, we briefly explored what people choose to do based on the choices available to them within the culture of the organization. Another way to put this is if an employee is told to do their jobs and that the inspectors are responsible for catching bad product, then the front line is unlikely to look for ways to improve how the line operates. In a company with a mature quality culture, employees are encouraged and empowered to identify opportunities for improvement. And most importantly, the management acts on those suggestions. I introduced Crosby's Quality Management Maturity Grid, and despite being nearly 40 years old, Crosby's grid has stood the test of time. And perhaps that's because quality worked his way up through the ranks from being a junior inspector. He had a clear grasp on what is required when an organization has a mature quality culture. We explored a small facet of the Baldrige Excellence Framework, which is sometimes simply called the Baldrige criteria. And finally, we put the lecture and tools to work with a brief case study of Acme Manufacturing and their widget line. Folks, no set of tools are perfect. Effective process change involves getting everyone on board. Otherwise, all you have is compliance. And once the pressure to comply disappears, organization members are going to return to their comfort zone of doing business the way we already have. I hope that you will leave the webinar with 2 new tools in your toolkit as you help your organizations move toward having a mature quality culture. I'm going to leave this screen up for you rather than go on to the Q&A screen. If you haven't sent in your chat questions, now's your chance.
So if you have any questions, type them into the question box. And while we're waiting, maybe, Charlie, thank you for that, by the way. That was excellent. And I was wondering if you had some thoughts on how you keep the use of the Crosby grid and the Baldrige criteria from being an end in itself, from being just compliance. As a leader, what do you need to do to take it beyond that?
Marilyn, I congratulate you on asking tough questions. At the end of the day, the resources are given to us by those senior executives. And I believe it's Toby McGuire where Tom Cruise says, "Show me the money." In a manufacturing environment, you can demonstrate the cost of rework and how that has a negative impact on a line. And by using the Crosby grid, you can say, "Hi, I understand you believe we have a really mature quality culture because we're ISO 9000, and we have HACCP certs and we have NADCAP welding certs. But when you show them that this product is leaving and you know that the cost of creating that product is," okay, folks, I use little numbers, $5 plus $3 material is $8. We shipped it for $2, so that's $10. It went off, it came back, so you had to pay shipping back. You have to pay for people to look it over and determine whether are you going to replace it or rework it, which brings its costs in. So when you show your executives the costs of doing that and you show them how much money they're leaving on the table, you can help use the Baldrige to quantify how you're going to make the changes to keep that money on the table in your organization. And you can also measure the changes in attitude using Crosby. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's a start, I think. I think there's also a indication that a leader should be advocating, as you said, and they should be talking to upper management and saying, "Oh gosh, look what this is costing us." But I think also, focus on the customer could be helpful. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree. Well, at the end of the day, if we don't have our customers, we can't stay in business.
Right.
And we can be very efficient in our business processes, but we can efficient ourselves out of business because we are not effectively managing our processes to deliver those goods and services our customers want. The voice of the customer section in the Baldrige Excellence Framework is very thought-provoking. It asks you hard questions about how do you know what your customer believes? Are you getting it through surveys? Are you benchmarking your responses internally against other members of your industry? The results section, if you take the assessment, is where you're actually going to report that. I encourage everyone to reach out to their local state level programs and see how those programs can help you improve your businesses.
That's great. Do you happen to know, you may not, but do you happen to know who some of the recent Baldrige winners are?
I do not.
No, I don't either.
So, Charlie, by the way, this is a very good presentation. And while we are waiting for, a question coming in, I just posted in a chat section a survey link. So, my request to all the audience, please take a moment while we are answering all those questions. Just take the survey. Survey help us always to make us better. So please take a moment while we are doing Q&A. Thank you, Charlie.
So, Pat Lalonde is online, and she says, if you use the data from research in the latest ASQ and Forbes, it will show you how much of the employee's time is being spent on unresolved or vexing problems. The numbers are staggering. Also, in one study, CEOs indicated that the culture of the entire organization needs to focus on the end customer, which will help drive improvement in the process. Comments on that?
I think that a mature quality culture definitely has a common view of quality. I am cautious about only focusing on an external customer, particularly in larger organizations. You have internal customers that don't directly have that external customer link, so you have to work very carefully to forge an understanding in the accounting department how their actions affect the purchaser of that good or service.
Yeah.
Whether that is how you handle an invoice, how long you leave them on calls, how accurate your accounting system is. Human resources may not feel a direct link to that external customer. However, the choices and behaviors and HR policies have a very direct impact on those frontline workers who are the face of the business.
Yeah. We have another question that asks, what comes next after achieving the Baldrige?
That's an excellent question. I would say, was it your entire organization, or was it a segment of your organization? Many years ago, the Caterpillar finance division, I believe it was, earned a Baldrige. As we know, Caterpillar has many divisions and makes a whole bunch of stuff. They never replicated that award through the rest of the organization. And for some organizations, they find that improving, as I said, manufacturing and engineering is enough to move them ahead, and it makes enough of an improvement. But I challenge organizations that it is very short-sighted to only improve a little bit, and it's very confusing when your staff transfers between departments, because in one part of the organization, hey, we're doing these things, I'm empowered, I can make choices. They move to a different part of the organization. It's like, dude, I told you to do this. Don't do anything else. Don't do anything more. So you get that workforce dissatisfaction building, and that hobbles you.
Yeah, let me go back for a minute to the comment about employee time being spent on chasing unresolved or vexing problems,
Mm-hmm.
and the amount of time that's spent on that. Maybe you can comment a little bit about the role of the quality professional in making all this whole system work.
Oh, see, I don't believe it is the role of the quality professional to make the whole thing work. It is everyone in the company, from the executive C-suite down to the frontline worker. And when we put it only on the members of the quality department, we rob the organization of a whole bunch of knowledge. For example, it's the guys who perhaps are working the equipment who know that by tweaking this one little dial, you get a better run. And that information is never captured, and the quality department may not be aware of it. So it's everyone, Marilyn, not just the quality professional. The quality
so you don't think that the quality professional has a role?
I disagree.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying it's their sole role. They may act as a facilitator, a source of information and knowledge, as a teacher, as a subject matter expert. I don't see the quality professional as being the sole arbiter of quality in an organization.
That's fair. Any other questions for Charlie tonight? This morning, this afternoon? A couple of questions about, oh, here's some more. So how do we better ensure quality is throughout the organization, not just quality folks? To follow up on our discussion right there.
That matrix. First, you start with the matrix to see how different groups in your organization perceive quality. You tie it to the Baldrige Excellence Framework. So if we're talking about HR, let's look at workforce. If we're talking about shipping and metrics, let's look at the measurements and knowledge capture. Leadership, strategic, there's a leadership section that talks about how do the senior leaders demonstrate their beliefs. And it's not going to happen immediately. The average change takes about 7 years. And what is frightening is that the Department of Labor Bureau of Census Statutes in September 2016 said people only stay in their job about 3.4 years if they're a manager. So you're continuously rolling against someone who says, hey, I'm out of here, about halfway through, and you lose your internal champions. You lose that knowledge. As organizations move toward retaining their workforce, as employee satisfaction goes up, you're not having that brain drain, and you're not being held hostage to Band-Aids that nobody knows why they are there any longer.
A contribution, a comment from our friend David Winnie, who says, what should come after getting the Baldrige Award? Sustainability and continual improvement. And another comment, if everyone is responsible, it may never happen. Who has primary responsibility? Another question.
That's a very fair question. The executive leaders, the executives, the senior leaders are the ones who lead by example. And they're the ones ultimately responsible for ensuring alignment of teaching and putting their money where their mouth is. In a research study I conducted, an organization did everything right. They had a perfect change management program. They checked all the boxes. The assessors came in, and they found out that the guys on the front line said, well, we know there was some kind of quality program. It was the middle managers who weren't passing the information through. So what they did is they got everybody together and said, hey, as executives, we goofed. They went back through with every single one, the middle management, the front line, and they said, hey, this is what quality means to us. This is what we expect from you as a mid-level manager. This is what we expect from you as a frontline worker. So they went back and they educated everyone. And then they told the middle managers, if you cannot support this, we will help you find new work. That's a pretty harsh statement, but that company went on to outperform everyone in its industry the next year.
Well, that may be a great place to wind up with that good example. And Deepak, do you want to help us close the webinar today?
So again, Charlie, this was very good presentation. I learned a lot. So does all the audience. I have seen a lot of good questions. So I'm concluding this webinar, but before I conclude, I want to just make sure that people know what is our next steps here. So we record this webinar. We will, again, as I mentioned earlier, if you have attended more than 35 minutes, you will get 0.1, I guess, continuing education credit that you can submit to ASQ. We will also post this recorded webinar, I guess PDF PowerPoint of this webinar and presentation, as well as the handout we'll post on our Human Development and Leadership Division website. You will also receive an email. Please take a time and complete the survey. As I mentioned earlier, we want to make ourselves also better every time we deliver the webinar. Just like our presenter mentioned about the quality, so we want to improve our quality also. So again, thank you very much. My panelists, Marilyn, Sarita, Kiran, Brooks. Again, thank you very much for help. See you in December. We have couple of webinar coming. One is in December and one is January. So see you again in that time frame. Again, thank you very much. And this is the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Charlie.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me present.
No problem.